the way that we've actually structured our business works really well because it's like wraparound care of the client. That means a lot, that somebody has invested some time and they aren't just another off the peg client.
Okay, hello, it's Chris here. I'm the co-founder at PPC Geeks. I'm here with Mark, who is one of our senior client managers. How are you doing, Mark?
I'm Grant. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So what we thought we'd talk about today was what the role of a client manager in a PPC agency is and how you manage your time on a day-to-day, weekly basis and how that fits in with interacting with clients and stuff. I thought that would give a real insight to open the kimono about all the great work that we do here. So that's what I'd like to focus on. So could you give me a bit of background about yourself, your experience in client management, and because you've had some quirky job roles as well, and maybe that brings things to your role to make it more well-rounded?
Yeah, I've tested toys and I've taught in prisons in the past. In terms of this so yeah, you bring up all of that. How do you get on with people? That is what my job is about. So I've done both. I've worn both hats in previous roles, because in most agencies, what you get is, or most companies, is that the the account manager role and the client manager role is one and the same.
Yes.
And actually, to be completely honest, the bit that I was always best at, because of my past, is communication. So how do I turn the language of robots, of data, into a narrative that people can understand? I love working for this company because I get to do both. I get to wear both hats, but I get to concentrate on one.
To just break down how we differentiate here at PPC Geeks, that we split, don't we, between what we call account managers and what we call client managers. Now, because we're a PPC specialist agency, in an agency that does a bit of everything, web design, social, all that kind of stuff, they tend to have project managers or client account managers or account directors who will manage different teams doing different aspects of digital marketing. But because we're PPC specialists, we only do PPC. So what we focus on is, getting your Google ads singing, getting your Facebook ads singing, all that kind of stuff. And to do that in the best way, we found that rather than having one person who interacts with the client and does the technical work, we found we're stronger and get better results by having an account manager who does the day-to-day in the account, all the clicking about, the technical, the strategy within the account from a technical point of view, and then a client manager who can understand the client's business objectives and project manage that and their strategy in the reporting to enable our account managers to focus on the technical side and the client managers to really translate the business objectives of our clients. So that's how we split it up. So I just wanted to clarify for the audience the difference here.
Yeah, my job begins at onboarding. So after a client signs up with us, for me, often the first interaction I have, yes, of course, we're talking about Google Ads, Facebook, Microsoft, whatever it is. But actually, one of the most important things is to start businesses based is relationships. So my job is to find out what makes that client tick, understand their proposition, understand their site, their experience of what they've had with agencies previously, and to try and find out what they want now, in a month, in 3 months, in a year. So it's that strategic partner that tries to work out and tries to interpret what it is that they're trying to say to me, managing those expectations, and then trying to think after that call, how is it that I communicate that to the account team?
Yeah.
So when I have that initial conversation after the onboarding call with the client, with the team, suddenly there is this collaboration. And I think that's one of the benefits of what we do, is that you don't have a singular pair of eyes on any one account.
No.
So you have me saying, yeah, but what if we do this? And they say, yeah, of course we can do this. You can tell the client we can do this, but you have to understand that that's going to take 2 to 4 weeks. And that's going to go, yep. Okay. So it's a bit more complex than that. Then I have to then work out, okay, but long term, this is what we want to do. Is everybody clear internally? But also what's lovely about having the split between CM and AM, client manager and account manager, apologies, is that you've got 2 people coming at the same problem from 2 different directions.
Yeah.
And so what mine might be a bit simplistic. Actually, sometimes because it's data, therefore it's binary, the account managers can be a bit simplistic. I'm like, well, that's not going to work for us because this client needs to get, not only that, there's an external pressure coming in from a competitor or from a logistical point of view. So the way that we've actually structured our business works really well because it is it's like wraparound care of the client, but from all bits, the hard data stuff, the technical conversion tracking, all of that good stuff. But also you've got, but hang on a minute. What we found was last Easter, this client had this pressure. We need to factor that in. And it's not going to be obvious from the data in the engines. So that's how I think it works. So onboarding for me is one of the most important. Also, I've got a terrible sense of humor. So it's good for these people to start to understand how I communicate.
I think the key thing though is that the client manager's role is to advocate for the client. The danger I see and have experienced in the past is when you are specialists like us, you can be a bit too laser focused, a bit too blinkered on. We see some terribly managed accounts, for example, and the immediate reaction is, oh, I just need to go in and fix this. I just need to click around, do this. It's what I call doing the clicky around. But actually, in the vast majority of cases, you need to take that step back and say, okay, what are we trying to achieve? Is this platform even the right one for it? And that's where the client manager brings those business objective advocacy to how we run the account, isn't it? And it's
with a lens
with both sides.
Yeah, we're a two-way lens. So what we have to do is to moderate the good old-fashioned data inputs, but also the softer inputs that are coming in from the client, and just trying to say, well, actually, to the account managers, they're positive conversations, but sometimes the role of client manager is to be a critical friend and say, well, I understand that you want to do that to get that ROAS, but actually that's not going to work for the client because of this.
Yes.
Conversely, sometimes some of the more challenging parts of what this role is hearing what that client has to say and go, I understand that, but historical existing data sort of shows us that is an aspirational target that might take us a while to actually reach. And so our job is to be that conduit between both parties, really. But it's an invaluable role because you get so much out of that day-to-day communication with clients. So much soft stuff around the business and about the pressures that they are, away from just it being a marketing gig.
Yeah.
This sometimes is listening to some of our Amazon ads clients, the pressure, the price pressure that they're under, and the competitive, frankly, ludicrous, unsustainable ways that other people are just sort of managing their business and trying to understand the pinched margins. The account managers aren't going to have that unless we tell them.
Yeah.
So that's why we meet, the account managers and the client managers meet all the time. Now, it's usually once a month, but actually, because we're a Google office and we have Google Chat, we're tapping each other up all the time. It's a constant flow of information. And what I found is that tidbits from emails that maybe seem insignificant, they can just work wonders in terms of allowing the account manager to paint a picture of that client and how they operate and how they communicate with us. I love it for that reason. And every day is different.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to bring in an actual example of where the value in this split is. So during COVID, which seems like a long time ago now.
It does indeed.
Do you remember there was all these supply chain issues? So there was this contraction of things, everyone panicked, and then everyone suddenly realized they weren't going on holiday and there was loads of money. So all these companies got more sales. So they ordered loads of stuff, and then there was a bottleneck in shipping. And what it meant was that some products were delivered late, and therefore, if you were a seasonal business, for example, you could have too much of rattan furniture at the end of summer. So the classic example would be a client would say, I need to get rid of this. And the account manager will say, well, there's less demand. But by bringing to bear the situation, the reality of the business perspective of, we're happy to sell this off. We've got a warehouse full. We pay money for this warehouse space. That then can be translated into different sets of KPIs for unique environments. And that's just one. It's a classic, easy to understand example, but these come up day to day, week to week, don't they? These individual things.
Yeah. A couple of months ago, there was a conflict in the world, which actually meant that certain shipping routes had to be changed, making them longer, making on costs more. So what we had to do with one particular client is not restructure what we were doing, but reframe what profitability looked like. Right. So we'd been working towards a particular ROAS and cost per conversion. Mm-hmm. But what we had to do is try and work out, okay, that was then, but for this particular window, we need to make sure that we are selling these at this value. So we had to be flexible to that. And it's a difficult conversation to have with the client because they're worried about the direction of travel for their business. Thankfully, it was only a temporary thing, and they're back to the normal shipping routes, and pallets are now costing the same amount of money, etc., etc. But that kind of understanding of the business is not lost on us. And I genuinely believe that's why we stand out from others, because we build that relationship that they go, Mark, mate, I don't know how to square this circle. This is happening to me on a wider business level. What can we do? And sometimes I can say, well, we can help with this bit. I'm not sure we're going to be able to get it down to there or get it up to there. But as long as we communicate transparently the expectations and what we can do and what we're working towards, then they're absolutely fine. But that's the service that we can give.
Yeah. So let's get into some of this, more of the specifics of the role. So I wanted to call this episode A Day in the Life of a Client Manager. So tell us about a typical work. I know no 2 days are the same, but there is a cadence to work. How does it start?
Mondays are a reporting day, because obviously what we do have some clients that still years on have a weekly performance report. It works for them better than either a monthly or a quarterly business review. So a lot of my Mondays are sort of looking at reports, doing some data analysis, some account reviews, but also weekends tend to be, there might be some firefighting over the weekend that's happened that we need to come in and address technical problems or technical issues. So that tends to be the Monday. That's the sort of day in the life of. So on a Monday, pre-noon, it tends to be looking at reports, getting those reports out and having that conversation, building, having those comms with clients about progress and performance. In the afternoon, what I tend to do is, I have looked beforehand, but we use a particular workflow where my colleagues internally will start then asking me, can you please chase a client about this? We've noticed a spike in conversions. We've noticed a drop in the performance of this. Can we get some new video assets for this particular performance max? So it tends to be, in my head, client first, and then colleague second. Of course, that's really oversimplistic because we're constantly looking at different channels of communication. But my inbox is my go-to first thing. And so it's client focus first, colleague focus second. And then some of the bits and pieces that we're going through at the moment, such as consent mode, they're quite complex pieces of technical work. So I tend to find when the coffee is charging first thing in the morning that I focus more on the hand that's being played to me. And then in the afternoon, I can put on a bit of music. I can try and work out how best to turn sometimes a really dry technical aspect or element of what we're doing. How can I turn that into bite-sized bits of information that isn't going to be war and peace and email that's not going to send the clients to sleep? So that tends to be it. But also there is always a responsive part of this job. Sometimes a client will just want us to focus on one particular product, or they're noticing they're getting lots of calls from one particular area that isn't seem to working for them. But it's so many different things that can come at you on a daily basis. It's almost like being a GP. You have to be a kind of jack of all trades, really, and just have an understanding of all of these small, sometimes really specific pieces of work or experiences that the clients are having, and being honest and saying, do you know what, I don't know the answer to that, so give me a bit and I'll come back to you. Let me ask. If I don't know about it, one of the other client managers, you, Dan, or one of the account managers are going to know something about it.
Yeah. So because there's a lot to manage, I think it'd be good to get into the specifics of how we are set up to handle that here. So we were always a remote company. When we founded the company, that's what we always wanted to do. We've based a lot of our principles of remote work on how Basecamp works, which is a software company we follow. It's all in our employee handbook, and they have like a book called Remote. But we've always been geared up to remote, even before COVID. And because we're remote, we can't just shout across the office. So we have various tools in place, don't we? So probably worth talking about how we interact with each other, how we do asynchronous work. So how we manage stuff in Asana and then chat and Google Chat and things. Take me through how you might manage that on a day-to-day basis.
It's fair to say that different strokes, different folks. So the client managers, because we are more vocal in the way that we work, communication is our thing. We have various chat groups, DMs. We're just constantly talking to one another. Can you sanity check this? Has anybody seen this? Or sharing a deck that's come through from Google or somebody. What there are also within Google Chat are various chat groups that are all hands. So if somebody is celebrating some success or a great review that's come through, we'll all hands will use that. Inside that are also team specific chats. So there will be certain people, some of our bigger clients where there are sort of multiple people working on this and it's quite a complex piece of work. We have groups surrounding particular clients. So that side of things is key for me. And some of it's just for sharing cake recipes. Some of it's for sort of swapping music and bits and pieces, because I think remote work for me works very, very well. For other people, they still need that sort of, is anybody out there? And I think this company do well that, yeah, we're all out here. We're all out here and we'll have, there's you've got to have fun, or else why would you do it? So there is definitely a sort of a currency of fun within the company. In terms of Asana, for those that don't know, would you describe it as a workflow?
It's a project management tool, essentially. Yeah.
So each of our clients gets a project board underneath which are one-off pieces of work, tasks, recurring tasks. Say, for example, if a client is going to do a promotion in 2 months' time, they contact me. I will translate that into an Asana task, and I will make sure everybody that's going to be working on that project is added as a collaborator. I will, yes, of course, put in the information from the client, but also start talking about particular ideas. And then the account manager will say, okay, that's brilliant, but what we need some video assets or some image assets. Here's the specifications. Can you go back to the client? It also means that every piece of communication that I have is put into there. So it's utterly transparent. Now, why is that good? It means that what's going on with that at the moment? You can come on, what's going on with X? And you'll go on and you can see all of the tasks that are live. You can see all of our interactions and know where we are. But also, for example, we have a colleague this week, one of our account managers that's on holiday. So all of their work, it's really obvious to see what's going on and what we're up to and where are we up to. So again, having worked in an office, I would shout out, what's going on with this lot? And somebody might know. Whereas here, we can't do that. We actually don't need to do that. I can pop onto Asana and I can see everything that's happening with mine and everybody else's clients, which is really, really beneficial.
The clear distinction there is that work happens in Asana. It's all documented. There's always a reference point. It's contextual. So if you're doing a promotion for a client, the chat or the comments will be relevant to that. So things don't get lost. It's all referenced back. It's asynchronous because you might have a client call, whereas your account manager might be wanting to do something, all that kind of thing. And then chat is really more the live chat, the instant messaging is more for social interaction and urgent things and quick checks. But the work is kept, and we're very
100%.
we're great on the processes and procedures there, aren't we? And then that can reference our knowledge base and stuff. So we're really geared up for this remote work environment. And I think it's far more efficient actually than an office environment where things get shouted across the office. You're always constantly interrupted, and then it's not documented or recorded. Things get lost. People said, "Oh, you said that," and you're like, "No, I'm not." But by having in a remote environment, we're forced into being better communicators, and that's one of the key things we look for in client managers and account managers is attention to detail and clear communication.
In previous roles, wearing different hats, when you've been doing a job for a while, you become the expert in the room, and that's brilliant. But when you're not there, who is the expert in the room?
Yeah.
So what Asana does, and the way that we use Asana, because those are two very different things, it's only as good as the use that we give it, is that for every one of my clients, there are at least two other experts in the room.
Mm.
So if I'm not here, or if I'm busy talking to another client and somebody needs to know something fairly, instantaneous, then, and even if Asana tells whoever who's working on this project, they know who to go to. Even if they can't get the information there, they know who the other people are collaborating on this project. Yeah. And sometimes some projects involve all of us, and sometimes some projects the two of us, but the same approach is used for both. If it's not in Asana, it doesn't exist. It's got to be that brutal.
Yeah, and my benchmark is, harsh as it sounds, if you get hit by a bus mark, someone else needs to be able to pick up your work with not going, where's everything at? And that is...
Why does it have to be a bus? Why can it just be something pleasant, like you went on holiday? Why does it have to be...
Well, yeah, okay, you went on holiday, and while on holiday, you got hit by a bus. Yeah, so the point is there, it's all referenceable, and we can look back and... everyone's on the same page, and that's a key culture of how we run.
Yeah. But what's also really nice is that some clients, for one reason or another, leave us.
Hmm.
And when they come back, we have this rich, not just the data in Google Ads, we have all the completed tasks and the conversations, the work discussion about that client. So even if I haven't worked on this client before, they're not coming to me brand new. Due diligence is going in and reading about them. And then suddenly they come back on board and they go, oh, shouldn't have left in the first place. This is why I'm still here. This is why I've come back, because it's this kind of relationship. And as a CM in particular, it's wickedly important, because all of that soft stuff doesn't have to be discussed again. I can see from your notes that means a lot, that somebody has invested some time and they aren't just another, off the peg client. It's a bespoke service.
Yeah.
And I genuinely believe, and it works. It works.
Okay. So we've talked about the tools, we've talked about more how a typical Monday goes. What other things are you doing regularly in the role as a client manager, whether on a weekly cadence, a monthly, we do quarterly things? Give us a quick hit list of those kind of things, that your role and why it's the same but varied.
Well, every single client brings with it a sort of specific set of interesting challenges. Some people have a very different, or they have a super competitive place within the market. So part of my job we do have some clients that are absolute market leaders. So my job for them is very different. So for example, for market leaders, our job is to not only sustain growth, but to keep that competitive edge. One of the hardest things, one of the most challenging things is for example, Google Ads has gone up the same as gas has gone up. So people quite often question, why am I spending more this year for the same that I got last year? Well, that's because the costs of clicks have gone up. So for some people, it's about managing budgets and looking at budgets and just trying to make sure that we keep that creative, innovative edge to keep us above others. For people that come in and want a bit more of a slice of the pie, we have to be almost a bit more creative and try different things. They tend to be a little bit braver in some of the things that come up. So I will speak to the account manager and say, why don't we try creating some video content for this client and see how it works? And then have that conversation with the client, and they might be a little bit nervous at the beginning. What does that entail? And then we can say, look, we can create some for you. I can meet with the team and we can create some videos for you in Google Ads and send them to you. Do you like them? Sometimes I say, yeah, those videos are great. And sometimes I say, those videos are terrible. Can I create my own? I said, yeah. So what you do is you do it this way. So in a sense, it depends where that client is, what it is they want to do, because lead generation and e-commerce are very, very different things. So for lead generation in particular, it's about, okay, well, that worked for a while. Have you thought about a different value proposition? Have you thought about adding Calendly widget to your site to see if people can, if you want B2B clients who are a bit stripped for time, they'd rather want to go in, see how their schedule links with yours and so on and so forth. So it's about creative bits and pieces like that. As I say, some of my clients like weekly and they like that via report. Some of them like a handwritten report. Some of them like monthly only. And some of my clients don't want to speak to me. They pay me so they don't have to do it.
Yeah, we tailor it, don't we, to the needs. We have a cadence, don't we? We like people to get weekly updates. We're always available. We have an internal benchmark. We'll always get back to you within 4 hours of office hours, for example. But we do have that. One of the things we have to do for clients is be the ones that have a structure. So what happened last month? What are you going to need to do to this next month? And we do quarterly business reviews where I always like to look at longer time horizons. So it's a 90-day cycle. It's better because you will have fluctuations on a weekly and month-to-month basis, but quarters are a bit more predictable. See what you're doing. What's coming up? Is Black Friday coming up? Is it coming into your peak? Is it going out of your peak? Is there any new features coming? Is there a tracking change like consent mode? We've got to plan these things out. We've got to disseminate that around the team, make sure it all gets done because we don't limit time on clients. We just get everything done that needs done for our clients. So, and it's really the client managers that drive that forward, isn't it? Because they are the project managers who are the glue that keeps all that together.
And I love a QBR. I love a quarterly business review because it's always nice to, look over the last 90 days and see what you've done. But also it's to build that. Part of my job is to, and I hope this doesn't come across as being slightly, is to upskill clients about how this stuff works.
Yeah.
And sometimes QBRs are a perfect example of that. Why this was better is because you had December. So you benefited, moving into Q2, we're expecting this. A year ago, you were getting this amount of leads for this amount of money, or this product worked really, really well for you. But also it's a time to take a step back and go, okay, so this is what we've done. This is what we'd like to do. Now it's over to you guys. Have a chat internally, come back with us, and we'll give you an idea of timeframes and how to do this. Again, is there going to be any pinch on resource their end? Are they going to have to get somebody to actually create these videos or change the website? But it tends to be a 3-month MOT.
Yeah.
And to really get underneath the bonnet and sort of say, okay, but sometimes to have that conversation, this is how far we've got. Should you wish to grow, we are going to need to rely on you doing this for us. And we bring that from this case study.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Okay. So to finish up then, we've got a good flavor of the, I guess, wide variety actually of things that you do in the job and how we work remotely and the difference in the role between the client managers, etc. Just for some rapid fire, what are top 3 things you like about this job? And then let's end on high. So what are the 3 biggest challenges with this job in a rapid fire format? And then what are the 3 things you like about this job?
It's a difficult time. So sometimes having a month whereby post-Christmas, this February, for example, just gone, has been a challenging time for all of us. So you develop a relationship with these people and you kind of get to really like them. So to sort of say, look, this is what we've done for you in February, it's been a challenging time. That's always a difficult conversation to have, but there's trust there. So they go, okay, but you finish that conversation with, this is what we're going to do in March.
Yeah.
So that's always difficult. I'm not going to lie to you. Things like consent mode are really, really annoying, because even though it's not on us, and it's actually this time not on Google or Microsoft, but that's always a challenge to say you are going to explore implementing a consent banner to do the same thing and keep all the majority of your data. So that's always a challenge.
But it's something that impacts us, so we have to drive it, and we do pride ourselves on driving clients forward, making sure they're staying on top of these things. A lot of people would say, "Oh, that's not part of managing a Google Ads account." So, but it's so critical, isn't it, that we just drive forward what's right for the client.
Yeah, and I think the other challenge is sometimes is trying to work something that makes perfect sense in your head and trying to explain how to actually elucidate that via email. So the classic example is data-driven attribution. How can I sell holidays? How come Google Ads has sold 32.7 holidays last month? And then you go, right, well, I understand what data-driven attribution is. And you write the email and you go, nope. And then you write it again, you go, potentially. And then I share it with a client and with a colleague, and they go, well, why don't you do, okay. So actually sometimes what is a 2-minute read for the client is actually me just trying to turn robot into human language, basically.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's a challenge as well. That's 3. That's not too bad, is it?
Well, Jeff Bezos says if you find a job that you like 50% of, you're better than the vast majority of. There's a lot of stuff we have to do, and that's, if there wasn't challenges, then we wouldn't have a purpose in the economy, would we? Business is here to solve problems, and that's what we do. But I think we do relish a challenge and problem solving. Okay, so to end, Mark, what are the 3 things about your role specifically, that keeps you at it?
Yeah, it's hugely different. Every single client, every single website, every single Google Ads account, territory, regardless of where we advertise around the world, you can't be complacent. And I like that, because I get bored easily. So I can't be in a job on a personal level. I can't be in a job that bores me. So the fact that this is every day, there is something to learn, relearn, or just kind of respond to or get ahead of, that for me is really, and every client just communicates differently. So building those sort of relationships are fascinating for me. So that's one. Secondly, sounds a bit cheesy and a bit, oh, captain, my captain, but actually starting with a client 2-3 years ago on a £3,000 a month spend and developing, being a genuine partner in their growth in this country and around the world, and having them say that is really, it's extraordinary. In commerce, it's going to be sort of slightly different to sort of, or maybe more challenging to have those kinds of senses of being part of something, but genuinely feel like I have been part of the growth of particular and the success. Sometimes let's be honest, post-COVID, we had quite a few clients who were coming to us who were in a real pickle. So growth is different for all people. Sometimes growth is just not going under. Yeah. So being part of a client story narrative, which means that they're still with us and they're still going and they're growing, even in small parts, is fantastic. Now that might have been cheesy. This is really cheesy. There's some really good people who work here, and we have a sharing of ideas, and we do have a laugh. And there's no politics. And I'm, as you can tell by the color of my beard, I'm not the springiest of chickens. So having worked in places, the team is all, wherever you work, doesn't matter what sector. You can have a really challenging job, but if the team's good and you're listened to, then that's great. So those are two work bits and one personal bit really for me.
Great. Well, thank you for your time, Mark. That was a great overview of the client management role and shows how varied it is, but also how it has been carefully thought out for the unique requirements of our clients to provide more value ultimately of that understanding, making sure everything's done and keep progressing for our clients. So thanks for your time, and we'll see you on another episode of the podcast.
Cheers, boss.